sometimes it feels like you're the only person dealing with a super high stress level, but that's just not true. And the next part of that is knowing where to look for help. So, providing resources online, following influencers or people on your campus, maybe who have resources to help you get by. Following people like Dr. Alfiee and like myself, who constantly are posting about resources and ways to get help and ways to stand up for yourself, I think is like of utmost importance during our college and post-grad years, because I think oftentimes it's like they're still kids. They don't need help. They don't have actual problems, but that's just not true.
I am overjoyed to have my new friend, Gigi Robinson, on today. This is so exciting. On the Couch to Color podcast. It's a cool story how we met at the Sound Mind launch last maybe November. And we were like fast friends, and she looked ridiculously gorgeous, I have to say it, in this red, orange, I don't know what exactly the color was, but it was fabulous. Oh my God, we were all like,
everyone was fabulous that night.
Why she looked like that in that dress?
I was just trying to have my Cinderella moment,
You're
but in
so
orange.
Awesome.
So are you.
Hey, that's it. Have it.
Exactly.
Have it.
Yeah.
So welcome, and
thank you.
Tell us about you.
Okay, well, I mean, there's so much stuff going on. Again, thanks for having me. And as Dr. Alfiee mentioned, we met at the SoundMind app launch, which was a app devoted to music therapy and sound therapy, and how that can be helpful for people living with PTSD, anxiety, depression, so on and so forth. And it was just incredible to be there with so many smart people on that stage that were talking, and in the room even also. So I immediately knew like anybody that those people brought together would be fast friends, as you mentioned. And I'm just really excited to like be in the loop. But a little bit about me. My name is Gigi. I'm 24 years old. I live in New York City, born and raised. I went to USC for undergrad, and I'm about to finish my master's. And I study innovation design and, the future of work, the future of innovation, the future of advocacy, social media, you name it. There's a place for it in this program. And I also model here and there and do a lot of public speaking. So that's kind of a brief overview of who I am.
Oh, I love it. And tell us a little bit about, because I was going to say the Acoma Project, that's the nonprofit. That is not what we're talking about today. We are talking here on the Couch and Color podcast. And can you just tell us a little bit about your investment in mental health? Why is mental health important to you? And, what kinds of ways is it important for you to show up in support of this issue of mental health?
Yeah, this is an incredible question, because I think to be self-aware in your early 20s of your mental health is a very challenging thing to do amidst graduating college, amidst moving back home, amidst the pandemic. I mean, this is specific to my situation, but in general, like the early 20s are the years that you're kind of forced into adulthood usually by yourself, and you're stuck and you have all of these things going on around you that you may have not known how to deal with, and maybe you don't know how to talk about or how to advocate for yourself even. That's like a new field, honestly, of teaching people how to simply stand up for themselves and giving them those resources. So I personally have always been in therapy. Since about second grade. I was dealing with mean girls living in New York City. And I feel like that, that happens growing up. I think everybody deals with mean friends at some point or another. And was that me taking things too personally, or was that people actually being bullies? Like, probably the latter, but also I'm like sensitive person. So that's a whole conversation for another day. But in terms of investing in mental health, I think, again, like honoring the fact that you do need help and knowing that therapy is not a scary place. It's literally just a place like you can talk. And a lot of times in this world, we feel like we don't have a voice and we're not heard and we can't talk. So being able to put myself in therapy has been important. And in conjunction, it's been important in my journey with chronic illness as well.
I am so sorry every time I hear a young person talk about having these experiences where people are like mean and nasty. And as a parent, it just, I don't know, it just makes me really sad that young people have to go through that. And I guess I wonder, without getting too deep into that, like your experience, have you ever had the opportunity to encourage other young women or other young people
Yeah,
who have dealt with like bullies? And what kinds of things do you share with them to help them?
absolutely. I think bullying is very challenging and part of my story and how I made a career for myself in the space of social advocacy, in the space of chronic illness and mental health advocacy, is because I dealt with pushback from my peers and my professors. And I didn't know how to say the things that I needed to say to get the accommodations without a problem, right? So for me, it was about sharing my story and my experience and my flaws and my failures so that I learned from them so that I could help others. So now I get messages from people literally all over the world being like, because of what you posted or the script that you mentioned, I was able to get a diagnosis. I was able to get an accommodation. I feel more at peace with my diagnosis. I know that my son or daughter or child is like it gives me hope. And I think that that is really why I really talk as much as I can about chronic illness advocacy and mental health advocacy. And in terms of getting into therapy and getting help, I mean, I tell this to my friends. I'm like, get into therapy. Let's like sit down and let's go through your insurance and the people in New York that might happen. Like, that's the kind of friend I am. I'm like, if something bad happens, like I want you to get the help that you need. And if that means me helping you for a couple hours, like there's no better thing I think anyone can do as a friend than to like help your friend when they're struggling. Um, just because I think it gives you that certainty knowing that you did as much as you could to help them be better.
Do you think it's hard for young people to, I mean, let's think about anybody like under 30 or sort of like that gap between, I'm fascinated by this question. When you finish, if you're fortunate enough to go to college, right? And you finish undergrad, and then like that next big milestone is probably turning 30,
Right.
right? If you go to grad school, like you're in graduate school now. I did graduate school, and it was sort of like those days, the graduate school days were like a blur because it's not the same kind of experience being a graduate student as it is. It wasn't for me finding a community and having a home in undergrad. Grad school, it feels like school is sort of like a job. You go do it and then you leave.
Right.
And so I'm wondering, what's your experience of, I don't know, I'm just really fascinated by this idea of how your mental health changes or is impacted in that space between graduating from college and it's like, oh, the world is my oyster. And then like really sort of getting out to the real world, so to speak, as people say, and sort of seeing things may not be. I know it wasn't for me. Like I had all these ideas. I was going to be married by 28 and I was like, I didn't have kids till I was 35. Do you know what I'm saying? So it was like this huge gap.
Yeah.
So what do you think that's like for young people nowadays? Like, because you're technically, correct me if I'm wrong, Gen Z,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like the same
Okay.
way.
Yeah.
One of my favorite
What?
comedians, Alana Schlesinger, she has a Netflix special called Elder Millennial. It's so funny. Like
That's it.
almost cry laughing every time. But I'm like an elder
Yes.
Gen Z essentially. So I feel like who knows? Maybe if
Yes.
comedy's in my
Yes.
realm 10 years from now, maybe I'll make my own Netflix
Exactly.
special. No, I'm totally kidding. I'm really not funny. I'm funny in the things that I do unintentionally, but I'm not a funny person if I say a joke. Like I'm not a jokester. So
I
anyway,
got you.
I
I got
digress.
you.
But
I
I
love
think for Gen Z, there's a lot of really interesting paths that we may have in our mind. I think a couple of studies that came out years ago said about like 65% of kids surveyed at the time wanted to be YouTubers when they grew up. And that's so fascinating, but not surprising because we're a digitally native generation. We're the first generation that grew up
Yep.
exclusively with the internet. And I think that that is a
Yes.
game changer, especially in what it means for the future of work for Gen Zers entering the workforce, right?
Yes.
It means having conversations about mental health openly with your coworkers and your bosses. It means being able to have a hybrid environment if necessary and work while you're in another country or another state if you need to. of course, we're talking about generic jobs that are not like doctor, lawyer, security clearance, blah blah. But also being okay knowing that you don't necessarily have to be at a company for a certain amount of time. I think there's a big emphasis on you get a job as an intern, you go work there as a adult, and you stay there. And you climb the ranks there, and you're effing miserable because you're too scared to quit and find something that you know would be better for you because you're so okay with the certainty of that. And that's totally fine. Like, I see some of that with my friends. On the other hand, I have friends who have told me, I hate my job. I'm not happy. It's not flexible. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, bestie, the internet is your oyster. Like, how about you do what you do best? Like, film something, get some content out there. And then, boom, they're growing. They're like, how do I monetize? I'm like, reach the F out to brands. It's not hard. You could send them a message, right? You can send someone a LinkedIn message. You could put something out in the world. And it's really, really important, I think, for older generations to realize that Gen Z really just needs a little bit of hand-holding in those beginning stages. But on the flip side, Gen Z needs to be okay asking for that help and receiving it back. So that's the key thing that people have been dealing with. And again, like, I was super fortunate to go to undergrad and have internships every single semester. I had 8 internships total. I was able to also have part-time jobs. I needed to make money to pay for things. Like, I was not there on a free ride or anything. I had a scholarship, but it wasn't crazy. So, and then when I came home, I really was like frightened kind of by this idea that I graduated in 2020 and there were not going to be any jobs. So I said, I have a phone. I have a lot of things I could do with a phone. And I have a BFA. I'm good at photography. I'm good at videos. I'm good at storytelling. How about I just start talking about my journey online so I can help people? And when I did that, that was also amidst all of the racial injustice happening, all of the Asian American hate happening in this country, all the mental health issues happening, all the pandemic effects happening. So I said, Gigi, like, you need to not just talk about fashion. You need to talk about, like, more substantial things. And that's really where I saw people not knowing how to make that transition. And that's what I started teaching. So I also believe, as certain as we can be about getting a job, you can also thrive in uncertainty and enjoy it and make a career for yourself that doesn't exist.
Wow. That is definitely a flip in a very positive way from older generations. So your parents' generation, they're probably my generation. And we're Gen Xers, right? And so Gen Xers, it was what you said, get a job, keep a job. I don't care if you are miserable, keep a job for security. And there was no, there really wasn't for any of us, the internet, until we were well into, like, probably coming out of college. So when I finished undergrad was kind of when the internet was a thing. Like, I remember, your parents probably remember, don't laugh, dial up. You don't even know what that is. Dial up. Can you imagine? The only way you could get online, I'm telling you, go ask some older people in your family, is you couldn't talk on the phone and be online at the same time. Can you even imagine? That's hilarious. I remember that. So the arc of it, no, you can't. And when I say that to my children, they look at me like I have three eyeballs. They're like, "Are you serious? What?" And so I love this idea of your willingness to encourage people and to encourage yourself and empower people with this notion of there's something that you're good at.
Yes.
Right? Think about what you're good at and how can you take that thing that you're good at and put it out into the world. So for me, listening to you, I feel like what I'm hearing is fashion is something that you're knowledgeable about and expert in, and mental health, the intersection between mental health and chronic illness, self-advocacy, and like really just what it means to grow into yourself and grow into your like the fullness of who you are all things that you put out into the universe. And so what I would love to hear is, are there any special projects that you can think of that allow you or have allowed you recently or that are upcoming for you that allow you to continue to do that, put those good things out there into the world?
Absolutely. So thank you for that. And I could not agree more that, like, I think it's really about the generations not getting stuck in their way and just like evolving, because the only way forward is the future. So if you want to stay there and say, okay, I don't want to use social media is bad, which, like, obviously we're acknowledging that it affects our mental health, but like there's tools now that actually are out there to help us with situations that, we might be struggling with. So I think there needs to be a willingness and an understanding that social media is not going away, and that we need to respect the way that people are trying to make money and moving away from corporate and into hybrid digital nomad, like all of those kinds of things, intergenerationally. And once we really know and accept that, I think then we can work together to, tackle other issues within society.
Ask one thing? Do you think
Absolutely.
it's, how do I say this? Do you think that there's something in the space of equality and equity, not equality, but
Hmm.
equity, that social media brings to people? Like, I'm just curious what you think, because I feel like there's something there about this. There's something, I don't know. I just feel like equity isn't always a thing in social media, but I do
Hmm.
feel like it can support. So from your perspective as a young person,
Yeah.
as a elder Gen Zer, do you think there's something about how we use social media to move forward equity?
I definitely do. And I think that it's because of the transparency, because you can see the metrics, because on the back end, you can see what I'm getting paid and what a person of color is getting paid. Well, you can compare and you can say, look,
Mm,
we have the
yeah.
same engagement. Why are you paying one more than the other? That's not
Mm.
fair. Why are you
Oh,
only doing campaigns for Pride Month during Pride Month and only working with LGBTQ plus people in Pride Month, right? Like, it doesn't add up. So social media adds this
right.
level of accountability that I think does
Mm,
not exist in person or doesn't even exist in paid broadcast media, because you can't tangibly track it down on an individual level. You don't have individuals with power, with magnitude online, with huge audiences
yeah.
backing them up saying,
Yeah.
hi, we noticed that this is kind of messed up. We're going to talk about it and you should totally correct yourself. So I,
Right.
for me, like, I got to participate in an allyship program with Yahoo last summer, actually. And it was really incredible because it not only taught us about, like, historically why people of color are underrepresented in society. Like, I know that sounds like generic, but it taught us more historically that maybe we didn't know.
Yes,
And it
yes.
was that program was in place not for Yahoo to say, "Oh, we're hosting this." It was literally informational. You, like, volunteered yourself into it. You said, I want to learn about allyship. I want to implement this in my work. And then from there, you go and you implement that, like, it's kind of like the ripple effect. You implement that into your work and you talk to someone else about it, and then they go to the next cohort and so on and so forth. So is there equity? Absolutely, but we're still working towards it. And I think the
Yeah.
other thing that is really unique about social media, anybody can start an account. We all start with zero, right? So you just have to be willing to put in the work. And I think every single day teams at these big social platforms are working very, very hard to be inclusive and to support all different communities online. So obviously Mental Health Awareness Month, AAPI, Black History Month, like Pride Month, like there's so many different things, and they now have these initiatives to support those people. It's kind of like the platforms are having the ERG
Yes.
groups, but for
Yes.
creators. And I think that that's
Yes.
really cool.
Yes. Oh, I love that. That makes me so excited because I agree with you 100%. I know for me, formerly as an academic, I worked in a hospital. You didn't know what people's salaries were unless you were writing grants together. And then it would be like this shock. Do you know what I mean? Because you've been working with this person for 10 years, then y'all write a grant together and you see they're making 40, 50% more than you. And you're kind of like, wait, what? But all this time has passed. And so now, like you're
Yeah.
saying, you can easily in real time go figure out, well, what are they getting for this partnership with X brand? And why am I getting something different for this same partnership? And so I think you're absolutely right. As well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I love what I see in young creators, and this leads me to another question about your point about transparency. Let me say it like this. Millennials and Gen Zers, I feel like, give themselves a lot of latitude and freedom to share a lot of who they are
Mm-hmm.
through
Mm-hmm.
social
Mm-hmm.
channels. And I wonder, would you agree with that? And what do you feel like are the upsides and maybe the not so upsides of being so transparent and open with all of who you are on social media?
Excellent question. And I think about this all the time because my career is predicated on me sharing my story and my struggle with chronic illness. So
Ah,
part of that
ah,
has really been also having conversations with mentors who work at these big social companies, just saying, look, you know, I have this career that I've like built the past 2 years. And it's not that I'm sick of talking about it. It's that I'm dressed up to go to an event tonight and I want to post photos about it, or I go somewhere else. And I sometimes get scared that my audience is not going to respond the same way they might respond to the work about advocacy. And that's just an irrational notion that I have in my head because, to be honest, most people don't care. It's not that they don't care, it's that they're going to support me regardless because of who I am, right? They're following me because of who I am, not how I look for the most part. Um,
that's right.
we have those followers who follow us because we're hot.
Yes,
We
we
all have
do.
them.
Yes, we
Um,
do. Yes,
yes.
ma'am.
And there's no shame in that game. But essentially, I do think that, like, what's the balance in being an influencer and sharing so much online and then actually being a person? Like, a lot of people are like, oh my God, you're actually so nice. And I'm like, what? You didn't think I'm nice? Like, just because I'm confident online and make silly videos, like, doesn't that, like, I'm like so nice. Like, what are you talking about? Or like, people are like, oh my God, I didn't realize you're so short. And I'm like, okay, like,
Really? Right. What do I
I
do
didn't,
with that? Is that a compliment? Like
right? And then,
what
like, so,
what? Right, yeah.
sometimes people say, like, this is more derogatory and more towards like dating, but people are like, you don't look like you have a chronic illness. Like, you're not sick. And I'm like, yeah, well, you don't look stupid, but you are. So just kidding. I would never say that to someone's face.
I love that.
I just
That's
think it.
hilarious.
But
Yes, yes.
again, to that point, it's really about like what you're comfortable with sharing and the intention behind it. So my intention in sharing my journey, I put up a post about burnout 2 days ago for mental health, the end of mental health awareness. And the reason I did that is, again, because I showed you before, my entire room looks like, I don't even know. I've got maybe a month's worth of cleaning to do because I have been so disorganized. I've got shoes everywhere. I've got bags. I've got hair tools. I've got like bags. I've got literally, my room is a disaster. I'll leave it at that. And that's indicative of how busy I've been, but also like I haven't been taking care of myself. And I'm open about that online because I know that that's the case for so many other people. And so many influencers do not talk about that element of like, you're getting ready for an event. And I know this might sound very surface level. You're getting ready for an event. You don't know what shoes to wear. You pull out 5 pairs of shoes and then you have to go because you're rushed. And then you get home and then your shoes are on the floor. And then the next day, you're going to have another event. You're going to have calls back to back to back to back. You're not even going to have time to eat until 5 o'clock at night when it's dinner time. And you're going to have a whole mess of shoes and you're getting ready for your next event. You have to go and the cycle repeats. And then maybe the next day you're catching a flight. Like, that is literally what my schedule was like in May. And part of that was also because I said yes to everything. So, like, part of sharing my journey online with my mental health does have to do with the burnout culture that was instilled in me. I think because I grew up in New York City, very, very work hard, play hard, hustle, hustle, hustle mindset, because of the work ethics that were instilled in me from my parents of like, hone your craft, do your best work, get the best grades, be the best at what you do, for no other reason than it's going to put me ahead, which it has. Highly recommend that. However,
Mm-hmm.
I got to college and I was on the e-board of a club. I was in a sorority. I was on the volunteer center thing. I was on the environmental sustainability club. I was doing like social media part-time. I was also doing like an internship each semester. Like, that's like 6 things on top of a full course load, on top of being chronically ill, dealing with chronic migraines, chronic EDS, chronic pain, fatigue, POTS, mast cell. Like, that's like so much. And I just like shrugged my shoulders and went along with it because that's what I thought was right. And that's what was motivating me, knowing that eventually it would pay off. So I know I'm probably going on a tangent here, but
not at all.
But yeah, I just think we don't talk about like the journey all the time. We just talk about the moment. And sometimes when you talk about the moment, and you're allowed to live in the moment and enjoy it, but if you only focus on the moments, like you don't see that bigger picture. That like I kind of see these moments as like hot air balloons during the hot air balloon festival of life, you know? And I think, you know, they all go up and they all come down, right? So that's how I see it. Anyway, I digress.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. So it just makes me think about one thing you talked about that I'm like, oh yeah, we definitely want to go down this road. Is you talked about juggling multiple projects.
Yes.
So I think I cut you off earlier.
That's
and
okay.
I just want to hear a little bit about what are some of these big projects that you have either in the pipeline or like just came out? Like what are, I know a couple. I'm hoping you're going to mention them, but yeah, talk to me a little bit about these big projects you're working on.
Yeah, so I appreciate you asking about projects. I think, you know, again, so many times people just wonder about how, like, they want to know how, like, how to get what you have, but they don't talk again about that journey to getting there. So I am like lucky enough to have a talk show with Spotify Live. It's called Everything You Need Is Within. You can see my old series here, but I have a brand new season 3 coming out, and I've talked to different thought leaders in the creator economy, in the mental health space, in the influencer space, and also again from big social side as well, really talking about the way that people manage mental health when it comes to social media. And it's just, it's been a really beautiful journey to also be on, because I started it in December of 2020. I was planning, and then I launched my first episode, and I did it for 5 months on Instagram. And again, this is a part of the journey that people don't see. They only see that I'm working with Spotify, and they want to know how. And it's like, okay, guys, let's hold up. Like, this has been a long time. And I started having people, and I started having issues. And I said, okay, Gigi, what's the worst that can happen if you just reach out to somebody who, like, you connected with on LinkedIn, and ask them if they will look at a pitch? And I did. And I reached out to iHeartMedia, Dear Media, Z100, like all of the, you know, radio stations that produce podcasts. And I didn't hear back from anyone except for the Spotify team. So I said, you know what? I'll take it. You're going to pay me to do what I'm already doing. Fabulous. So I ended up, signing with them, and it's been a year now, which is really, really exciting. And some other things. Well, if you haven't researched me and you're listening for the first time, I just got selected in Sports Illustrated for their annual swim search. And I am the first chronically ill woman in the magazine, which is super exciting for representation. So I'm hanging tight to see if I end up winning the whole thing. And, you know, even if I don't, it's taught me so much about myself and about how there is a place for representation in the modeling industry, even if you don't look okay, that like you can be chronically ill and you can do whatever you want. So that has just been super exciting. And as I mentioned, also, I am almost done with grad school. I'll be done in December.
There's so much good stuff. Like, it makes me so happy to hear you talk about this, and like being the first person with like a chronic illness to be in the swimsuit issue. Look, I'm just trying to think about like the history of the swimsuit issue. And when I tell you the art that these folks have gone on with that, from where maybe it wasn't so inclusive to the just, I was watching Today Show. We just taped the Today Show with Hoda and Jenna, but it ran on Monday. And right before our segment came on, Elon Musk's mother, May Musk, was on. Right? She's 74, I think. And she was on and I was like, Sports Illustrated, good job. You know what I mean? Like, and so just to hear you talk about your experience and you being a part of that, that makes me so happy. And so I want to just hold space and recognize what an accomplishment that is to be in this place in this time with Sports Illustrated. Yes. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just like, it sounds so cliche, but it's true. Like dreams come true. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that's really important to acknowledge. And it makes me think of one more question. Was that something that you ever envisioned for yourself when you were a teenager or a little girl, Sports
No,
Illustrated?
it was never something. And
No.
I appreciate you holding that space. And like, I think a lot of the past month has been virtual things celebrating me getting in.
Yeah.
It hasn't been like in person really. And so it's just it's really special when people are like, hi, that's really cool. Who are my friends? But no, it wasn't something I ever like dreamed of doing. I'm 5'4", I'm 165 pounds. Not that that matters, but that's not the typical, like model, right? That's not what is really standard, I guess,
Definitely not for
by
SI.
fitting.
Right.
And over the past couple of years, SI, yes, they've been on a push for diversity. I think since 2018, since their first swim search, they really started representing anyone and everyone. And this year's theme was really about empowerment and allowing people to partner with the SI platform in general to amplify a certain message, whatever that was. And everybody each individually had their own unique message, and all of the models that were chosen like have a big message. And like growing up, I had always loved shooting like photography of people and making them feel confident. So, and I looked up to Yusai, the photographer, for years and years and years. And, to be able to be on the other side of his lens was like literally the craziest, coolest thing in the world. And, that was like a dreams do come true moment, because I was like, holy crap, like I didn't even think it was possible to meet him one day. So that was really cool. And then to like see myself in the magazine and to not have retouching on it, and to show that like you don't need retouching to look good. You can feel like shit and also look super hot and not have your body altered.
That's
And
right.
like make a killer photo. Like that's insane. Like we're in a time where that exists,
Yes.
and that didn't exist when I grew up.
Yes.
That didn't. I was pushing for it for
No.
so long, literally since I was a freshman in college, a sophomore in high school. Like I was creating art about this, shooting my friends,
Yes.
not retouching them, putting them on photoshopping them onto the covers of magazines. And then to actually be put there also for like body acceptance and neutrality really was like also very full circle.
Oh, I love that. I just love it. I just think about all the little girls. So my daughter is, she's a little bit younger than you are, but just think about like even girls younger than her who will be able to look around them in the universe and see the cover of a magazine, see someone who looks like you, see someone who looks like Mae Musk, see someone who looks like, many of the other women that I saw, I just saw so many different representations of women. I saw some of the WNBA players. Like you don't typically see women, right? WNBA women portrayed in that way. And it was phenomenal. So congrats on that again. And then I have to like shout you out real quick. Tell us the name of the Spotify show again. What is the name of the show?
Yes, my show is called Everything You Need Is Within. The title is representative of the show's theme. And it's also a mantra of mine. But also just real quick on the swimsuit note, I think the coolest thing about this representation is that everybody wears a bathing suit. And like, why does it have to be like portrayed as this big, like, oh, only super hot girls can wear bikinis? Like that's just not true anymore.
That part.
It once was.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I think that just recognizing you can be a mom, you could have a mastectomy and be on there, you could be chronically ill, you could have a disability, you could have a mental health problem, you could be an athlete, like you could be an astronaut. My friend Serafina's an astronaut and she was in it. Like that's insane. So anyhow, yeah, that's that.
No, I think that's really important. And just hearing you amplify just that message, right? What's hot is what you just said. Everything you need is within. So if the hotness is within, then you're hot, right? It's not up to other people to define for you what's hot and what's not. So I'm gonna have to buy it now because I never used to buy them because I was like, ooh, they were not inclusive back in the day. They've gotten better. But
They
back in the
have.
day, it was just kind of like you knew exactly. It was almost like the only thing that changed was hair color and eye color. Everything else was the same. And so, it was a big deal when Naomi Campbell. I remember when Tyra Banks was on the cover and everybody went nuts because there was a Black woman on the cover. But
Yeah.
again, right? No shade to Tyra. I love Tyra. It was the body image. Everybody
Right.
was the same. The
Right.
only thing that
Yep.
was different was a little bit of pigment, right? A little bit of melanin, and maybe, like I said, hair color and eye color. And now you have women in there like you who represent all of us. It could be the woman next door. It could be the girl who lived in the dorm next to us. It could be, the woman who was on the basketball team in our high school. Like, it could be literally, it could be grandmother. It could be your mom. Like you just said, it could be anybody. And so I think that's so beautiful that you're a part of that.
Yeah.
So congrats.
Thank you so much. And I agree. I think aside from Sports Illustrated is making a statement. Victoria's Secret right now is making a statement. Aerie is making a statement. I think these brands that are heavily female dominated are really realizing that we all have a seat at the table, and it's time that the media that represents that really, really reflects what we're saying. So I just think it's really, really incredible to be in this time where
it's phenomenal,
where e-commerce is not retouched and it shows how clothes actually fold and it doesn't look perfect and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's incredible.
Exactly. I love it. So, okay. So we've covered a whole host of topics, a broad range of things. And I guess what I'm wondering as we wind down, the two things I always like to do, I have like this rapid fire question thing, but we won't get to that yet. I want to hear if there's anything that I haven't touched on that you feel like is really important to get that message out there at this moment in time. And if so, fire away. Let us know what it is.
Yeah, I love the rapid fire questions, but I think emphasizing that struggle during college with your mental health and your physical health and eating is very normal, and it happens to most of us because we're in a new environment, we're completely on our own, we have to figure out how to, some people like learn how to cook, some people learn how to meal prep, budgeting around food, not necessarily, spending money on all your food all the time, having interesting relationships with your body because of the freshman 15 or the some people call it like the sophomore like 70, which I know that's like intense, but like people are saying all these things as if it's negative. But you know what? Like sometimes during different phases of your life, that's your weight's going to fluctuate, and like that's really okay. And on top of that, your mental health is going to fluctuate. You're going to have periods where you're studying your butt off for finals, and you're going to be at a very high acute stress level, and that's okay. And it's okay to struggle. And guess what? Once you're super, super high on that stress, you're also going to come down. You're going to come down from it. Same way you come down from like weed, and drugs, and and like eventually, you have to deal with like that. Sometimes it feels like you're the only person dealing with a super high stress level, but that's just not true. And the next part of that is knowing where to look for help. So, providing resources online, following influencers or people on your campus, maybe who have the resources to these mental health, resources to help you get by. Following people like Dr. Alfiee and like myself who constantly are posting about resources and ways to get help and ways to stand up for yourself, I think is like of utmost importance during our college and post-grad years, because I think oftentimes it's like they're still kids. They don't need help. They don't have actual problems, but that's just not true. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So then we just have two rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And I'm going to, whatever comes to mind that you feel comfortable sharing, I want you to share. So I want you to think about the past year of your life, the past year, like the past whole year, going back to May, like Pride Month of 2021. And in that past year, just keep that in mind. And then the question is, what is the one thing you are most proud of in the past year?
Wow, this is much more challenging than I thought, but I honestly think like
it's okay.
Like starting grad school and pursuing it and like really like dedicating myself to higher education and having what I'm learning actually be implemented into my work, it is that ripple effect that I wanted to see happen. And it has. So that's definitely it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, so we look backwards. So just think, we're going to look forward.
Oh.
That's the next rapid fire question. So the next rapid fire question, So what is one thing you are most looking forward to now? And put it in context. It does not have to be something that you know is coming down the pike. It could literally be anything that's in your vision, in your dreams, anything. What is one thing that you're most looking forward to in the next year of your life?
In the next year, I definitely look forward to speaking on more stages about chronic illness and self-advocacy. So I'll leave it at that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. There are no wrong answers. That's beautiful. Okay. So, Ms. Gigi, tell the people where they can find you and follow you, and make sure you mention everything, even if you've already mentioned it, because we want to get it like all in one place, everywhere people can go find you, follow you, learn more about you, see all your awesome content.
You're the best. Thank you again for having me. Such a lovely conversation. And I can't wait to have you on my show whenever we figure it out, because I know you're so busy.
Anytime.
So where can you find me? My website is gigirobinson.com. You can Google me. My socials will come up. My handles are at, like the at symbol, the word it's, and then my name, Gigi Robinson. So at it's Gigi Robinson everywhere. And my podcast is Everything You Need Is Within, and that's on all podcast listening platforms. And we do have an Instagram account too, which is linked in my Instagram bio page. So that's that.
Yay! All right, Gigi Robinson, thank you so much for being here. It was a joy. Congratulations on all your success. I appreciate you for the empowerment messages that you share with others. I appreciate you for being so open and transparent. About chronic illness, about your own mental health, about your own journey. I have learned so much listening to you today. And I also really feel like I've gained some insight that will honestly, truly help me when I think about, I'm proud to be a Gen Xer, and I recognize there's so much I don't know about Gen Zers, even though my kids are Gen Zers and millennials. And so I feel like what you've given me today, among many things, is the gift of some insight into some of the things that motivate Gen Zers, some of the things that impact your mental health. And really, I tell you, one thing I definitely learned is just a slightly different frame on the power of social media and ways to think about how we use it. I think I had one, because I'm active all over social media, but I had one idea. And the gift you've given me today is really opening my mind, honestly, a lot more to there's so many other ways to use it. So you keep showing up on those stages. You keep being out there talking to people. You're not just educating laterally to your generation. You're educating up and down, the ones who came before and the ones who are to come. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. And anytime you have questions, hit my line. I'm always here.
Thank you for tuning in to Couched in Color. You can check out more episodes on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and your favorite podcast apps. Check out the show notes for any websites linked to this episode, including where to connect with us on social media. I appreciate you tuning in. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you'll be updated of each episode release, and visit me at dralfiee.com for all podcast updates as well. As always, I want to wish you lots of love and light, and I hope that they are always informed by good, culturally relevant science.